The first thing I saw was the handle, frayed and dark against the white paint of my daughter's closet. The suitcase shouldn't have fit behind the shoe rack, but there it was, wedged like a secret that had grown too heavy to hide. I pulled it out into the thin strip of morning light and felt the cold metal teeth of the zipper bite my fingers. The living room TV was still humming down the hall. The coffee tasted sour in my mouth. My hands shook, and it wasn't because of the caffeine. It opened with a sigh, like it had been holding its breath for months. On top was a hoodie I didn't recognize, charcoal gray with a smear of something brown along the cuff that might have been chocolate or mud or something worse. Beneath it, stacks of receipts folded into tight origami triangles, a burner phone with no case, a spiral notebook with the cover peeled off, an envelope fat with cash. Under the cash, a Polaroid of my daughter at the bus depot, cheeks red from cold, eyes looking past the camera at something I couldn't see. I told myself I was protecting her. I told myself I was only looking for a clue I could put back where I found it. There were 3 driver's licenses tucked into the notebook's cardboard back, each with a different name and the same face. My daughter's face without the braces, without the freckles, without the smile. The photos were slightly wrong, different lighting, hair parted left, hair parted right, but the jawline and the eyes were unmistakable. I pressed my thumb against the laminate and felt heat collect behind my own eyes, a pressure that blurred the numbers. What kind of lies need 3 names? The burner phone vibrated in my palm as if it sensed daylight. The screen crawled with messages from unsaved numbers. Be there by 3, no mistakes this time, use the blue bag, don't call me. One stood out in plain English, the kind you can't misread. You don't have to do this alone. I heard the front door open and close. A neighbor's dog barked. The house settled. My daughter, Lily, would be home in an hour, maybe less. Saturday meant practice tests at the library, and then a smoothie with friends, and then a shift at the ice cream shop, because savings don't build themselves, Mom. That was the line she'd used, cheerful and practiced. Now the line lay dull and thin like fishing thread across the contents of a stranger's life. My stomach pitched. I took everything out and laid it on the carpet like evidence. The hoodie, the cash, the notebook, the phone, the IDs. The receipts told a story of motels and gas stations on the edges of town, all paid in cash, all late at night. The notebook's first page was covered in Lily's handwriting, columns of dates and names and dollar amounts, each line ending in a tiny star. At the bottom, a note written harder than the rest. Don't flinch. I didn't realize I'd said her name out loud until the sound of it made the room smaller. Lily? The house stayed quiet. Somewhere in the neighborhood a lawnmower started. The hum of it sawed through my focus until all I could see were those 3 faces posing as one girl. Beneath the notebook was a hospital bracelet, the cheap plastic kind that always looks the same, a barcode, a fake name, a date. The date was 3 weeks ago. The Sharpie name read Aaron Cole. My throat closed. I checked the burner's outgoing calls and saw only one number repeated over and over with short durations, 30 seconds here, a minute there. The area code was ours. I did the thing I remember hating as a teenager. I called a number I had no right to dial, chasing a truth I might not want. It rang twice, and a woman answered with the kind of careful tone people use when they don't know which version of reality is about to step through the phone. "Hello?" "Hi," I said. "I'm looking for Aaron." Silence stretched like plastic wrap. "I think you have the wrong number," she said, but her voice wobbled. And in that wobble I heard something that felt like fear. "Please," I said, and that word came out raw. "I'm Lily's mom." Another silence, heavier than the first, then a breath. "Meet me where the buses pull in, today, 3 o'clock. The line went dead. I stared at the quiet phone until my reflection blurred back into the room. 3 o'clock. The text in my hand had said, "Be there by 3." The envelope of cash glinted at the corner like a crooked tooth. I put the contents back in the suitcase exactly as I'd found them, except for the burner. The burner went in my pocket. I slid the suitcase back behind the shoes and closed the door. The coffee had gone cold. I picked up my keys and wrote a note for Lily. At the store, back soon. The pen dug into the paper. I left it on the counter and walked out into a day that suddenly felt like it had a hole in the middle. The bus depot always smells like diesel and old gum. Pigeons patrol the high beams, and the announcements come in bursts that never make sense unless you already know what they say. I stood under the departure board and watched the seconds click, each one a small hammer drop inside my ribs. A boy in a red jacket asked me for a lighter. I shook my head. He drifted away, the kind of ghost you only see when you're looking for someone else. At 2:59 a.m. in my memory, and 2:59 p.m. on the clock overhead, a woman in a navy hoodie walked up and said my name like a question. She had the posture of someone who expects bad news even in sunshine. Her eyes kept moving. "You're Lily's mom." "I am," I said, and everything in me wanted to ask 100 questions in the shape of one word. "Why?" "She told me not to call you," the woman said. "She said it would make things worse." "Things are already worse," I said. "Who are you?" "Erin," she said, and her mouth twitched around the name like it fit poorly. "That's what she calls me anyway." She led me to a bench near the vending mark. "Ines." The air tasted like metal. "You don't know me," she said. "You don't have to trust me. But Lily has been doing something dangerous, not stupid," she added. And something like pride warmed the single word. Dangerous. For the right reasons. My hands went cold. "Tell me." Erin glanced toward the door like she was expecting someone to crash through it, like a movie scene where daylight shatters. "There's this guy," she said. "He runs out-of-town deliveries, groceries, meds, whatever people need. He uses kids who won't get stopped, kids who don't look like trouble. He pays well if you don't ask questions. If you ask questions, you don't get paid." "That," I said, "is not something my daughter would—" "She's not doing it for him," Erin said quickly. "She's doing it for us." The word us landed like a thrown stone. "Us?" "Girls," she said, and her eyes lifted, scanning the faces rolling by. "Kids. Anyone stuck on the wrong side of a locked door with no car and no money. She uses his routes. Same addresses sometimes, but different packages. She swaps. She drops what we need. She picks up what we can't carry in the open. She goes where the cameras don't look. She learned all his patterns, and she learned how to walk around them." My pulse stumbled. "How do you know this?" Erin lowered her hood. A purpled half-moon bloomed under her left eye. It wasn't fresh, but it wasn't old either. There were white lines on her knuckles like a map. "Lily helped me get out," she said. 3 weeks ago. That hospital bracelet? She waited with me in the ER until someone could see me. She used another name because she didn't want my husband to find me there. She bought me a bus ticket with cash and wrote out instructions like I was going to a foreign country. Eat, then sleep. Sit near the driver. Don't go outside when the bus stops unless you have to. She made me promise to call Whoopee. And I got to my cousin's place in Amarillo. A memory flickered. Lily slipping into the house after midnight. The quick kiss on my cheek. The smell of cold air and peppermint. "You're sure it was my daughter?" "I'm sure," Erin said. "She kept saying she had a good mom. She kept telling me you'd be mad, and she kept doing it anyway." The air thinned. The image of the 3 driver's licenses slid through my mind like a hand of bad cards. "The fake IDs," I said. "The phone, the cash." "Tools," Erin said simply. "The guy she's running circles around doesn't like to look stupid. He's looking for whoever's messing with him. He isn't the kind of man who lets go." Something heavy shifted inside me. Where is she now? Erin checked the time on the dead face of a bus schedule. "She said she'd meet him today," she said. "To give something back or to switch something. She didn't tell me what. She told me not to call you. She told me to stop. She told me this was the last one." The announcement board thunked. A bus hissed at the curb. The world kept moving like none of it belonged to us. "Where?" I asked again, and this time the word came out sharp enough to cut. Erin looked at the floor. The storage unit's on Ash, back row near the broken light, 3 o'clock. It was already 3:07. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say anything. I ran. Ash Street blurs into the river road where the warehouses squat with their backs to the water. The storage facility sits behind a chain-link fence patched with strips of tarp. A keypad waits like a mouth wanting numbers. My brain tossed useless word scraps while my body kicked into a gear I didn't know I had. I parked crooked and went to the fence. It's strange what you remember when you're scared. I remembered the sound Lily's laugh makes when she can't stop. I remembered the way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's about to lie. I remembered the time she fell off her bike. Ian refused to cry until I told her it was okay to let the hurt wash through. I scaled the fence in flats. My skirt snagged. The metal bit into my palms and left red lines like stitches. I dropped on the other side and hit the gravel hard enough to bite my lip. The storage rows stretched like a gray canyon, door after door. The broken light flickered 3 rows down, and beyond it, shadows pooled. I heard voices before I saw them. A man's low, in control even when it wasn't. A girl's, level and steady, my daughter's voice, except she was trying on a version of calm I had never heard. "You're late," he said. "Traffic," she said, and the word knocked something out of my lungs because she had said that to me too, to cover holes in her day. Now I knew which holes. I edged along the units, keeping to the sliver of shade. At the corner I saw them, a tall man with a clean jacket and dirty shoes, and Lily facing him, hands in the pocket of that gray hoodie, the one I'd touched without understanding. It fit her too big. She had a blue duffel at her feet. "You think you're clever," the man said. His voice had a smile in it, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Boxes go missing. Addresses get swapped. My people wait and nothing arrives. And then I find little gifts in places I'd never send them. Funny, right?" Her chin lifted a fraction. "You misheard your own directions," she said softly. "Maybe your runners can't read." He took a step closer. "I don't like agents," he said, and the word hung there like bait. "I don't like thieves. I don't like girls who think the rules don't apply." "I'm not an agent," Lily said. "I'm not a thief." "Then what are you?" he asked. She looked up at him the way I've seen her look up at thunderheads. No fear, just calculation. "I'm a courier," she said. "Like you. Faster, though." Something in him flinched, something smart, enough to recognize what he couldn't control. "What's in the bag?" "What you lost," she said. "What I didn't want. Take it, and you stop looking for Aaron." There it was, the name like a match. The man's eyes narrowed. "I should open it," he said. "Or you can leave without insulting me," she said. "You can try being a gentleman." He laughed. He didn't sound amused. He moved like the laugh was cover. He turned slightly, and his fingers twitched near his pocket where the coat bunched. For a second I couldn't breathe because I didn't know what he'd pull out. Keys, a phone, something that could end this in a way that couldn't be undone. My body acted without asking. I stepped out with my phone in my hand like it was a weapon. "Lily," I said, and her head snapped so fast her hair whipped, and in her eyes were 100 things she'd planned to say and 100 more she never would. "Mom," she said, and the word broke. "You can't." The man turned. His smile found me. "Oh," he said, "a family business." "Walk away," I heard myself say, and it sounded like someone else was speaking through me. "Take what's yours and walk away." He cocked his head. "You think this is mine," he said. "You think I'm the problem." "I think you're in my way," I said, and the truth of that surprised me. He nodded toward the duffel. "Open it." Lily didn't move. "Open it," he repeated, and something like boredom edged the order, as if he was tired of playing. Lily knelt and unzipped the bag. I saw packages inside, tightly wrapped, all edges and tape, like someone had taught her careful hands. I couldn't tell what they were and didn't want to know. She reached in and pulled out another bag from underneath, a smaller one the color of a robin's egg, cheap nylon with a knotty zipper. She held it up. "This was yours," she said. But her eyes were on me, and I read the message in them like I used to read her drawings on the fridge. "Not this one. Not that way." The man smiled and reached. She let go. The bag swung in his hand, and I saw the weight of it change his wrist, the tiny drop before he caught it tighter. He didn't notice the ribbon of fishing line that trailed from the zipper pull to the side of the duffel. I did. I didn't understand it, but I saw it. I saw Lily's fingers on the line, and then I saw her go still. He yanked the zipper, and the little bag opened like a mouth. Red powder bloomed up in his face, sharp, furious, immediate. He stumbled back with a shout that turned to a cough, that turned to a sound that wasn't a word. The wind picked up and carried the dust. It smelled like peppers and heat and the inside of a kitchen when someone isn't careful. He dropped the bag and pressed his sleeve to his eyes, but too late, too late. And for a second, all the careful lines he'd drawn around himself fell apart. "Run!" Lily said. We ran. Gravel sprayed. My palm bled in a thin line across my lifeline, and that seemed like a joke I didn't get yet. We cut between the units and hit the fence where my skirt was still snagged like a flag telling on me. Lily boosted me up without a sound. I dropped on the other side and turned, and for a fragment of a second I saw the girl version of her I remembered, the skinned knee, the chipped tooth, the way she'd grin through it. Then she climbed, and we were both on the sidewalk, and the air felt new. Behind us, the man was swearing in a voice that sounded like somebody else's problem. I wanted to keep it that way. Lily grabbed my keys, and we dove into the car, and the engine caught like it wanted this as badly as we did. We took the first right, then the second, then merged into Saturday traffic like we were just another mother and daughter doing errands before dinner. We didn't speak until we hit the river. It flickered silver between the trees. My hands forgot how to be still. "I told myself I was being brave," Lily said, "but really I was being stupid. Those are cousin." "Course," I said, and my laugh sounded wrong, too bright, too sharp. "I couldn't tell you," she said. "It would have scared you." "It did," I said. "It did anyway." We drove until our neighborhood crept back into view, the familiar houses with their familiar porches like a storybook you return to because you know the ending. I parked in front of our house and left the engine running because stopping felt too much like faith. "I didn't want you to think I was like him," she said. And I knew she meant the man at the storage units and also someone else, maybe the father across town she pretends not to remember, the one who turned leaving into a door that never closed. "I don't," I said, and the words came out stable. "I think you're like you, which is scarier." She laughed brokenly. "There's more," she said, and I believed her because there is always more. She told me then, halting, picking her way through the facts like they were glass. The burner phone wasn't just for drop-offs. It was a hotline of sorts she'd stitched together through friends and friends of friends, a whisper chain of addresses where the locks turned the wrong direction. She knew the man's roots because he used predictable days and predictable kids. She'd mapped them, timed them, then reversed them like mirror writing. The Polaroid at the depot was her insurance policy, a time stamp in case she vanished. The cash was pooled and accounted for. And every bill accounted lived in that notebook with the tiny starred lines. Each star a person who had made it out of a bad weekend alive. "You're 17, I said softly. "I know," she said. "That's why I had to move fast." "Who else knows?" "Aaron," she said. "A couple of girls at the ice cream shop. The night manager at the bus station. One boy at school who can keep a secret because his own would ruin him. I never work alone," she added, and she sounded like she was quoting something she'd promised someone older. "Except today. Today I wanted to finish it." "You think finishing looks like handing a bag to a May?" And who would burn the world to find you? I asked. She stared at her knuckles. Her hand looked smaller than it had a year ago when she wore rings made of string. I think finishing looks like making him think I'm gone, she said. I think it looks like him telling himself a story where I never had a name at all. We let the car tick. A bird pecked at the edge of the yard. Somewhere a siren bloomed and died. My life had tilted, and the furniture hadn't moved yet. The suitcase in her closet waited like a door I hadn't opened on purpose. You'll have to tell me everything, I said. Not because I want to stop you from helping, because I want to keep you breathing while you do. Her head snapped up. You're not going to ground me? I don't have time to ground you, I said. We have to move. We didn't go to the police that day because of the same reason Aaron had used a hospital bracelet with a fake name. You can say justice into the void, and the void can say nothing back. We took smaller steps that felt like the right size. We hid the suitcase where even I would have to think twice to find it. We poured the cash into a plain envelope and slid it into a safe deposit box under a name that wasn't mine or hers. We wiped the burner and replaced it with one I bought in a strip mall from a bored clerk who didn't even look up. We made copies of the notebook pages and stored them in 3 places that had nothing in common except that no one would connect them to us. That night, I lay awake and watched the ceiling change shades. The house made its small noises. The yard did what yards do, breathing leaves and shadow. I thought of the man with the powder in his eyes and felt the shape of his anger move through the dark like a wave I couldn't see yet. I thought of the other faces hidden behind new names and old fear. I thought of Lily, asleep, a line of hair across her cheek like a comma between the girl she'd been and the woman fighting her way out. In the morning, the doorbell rang. It was the man from the bus depot, the one who'd asked for a lighter. Up close, he looked like a kid, really, even with the tattoos peeking like vines under his sleeve. He rocked on his heels and tried to look past me into the house. I'm looking for Lily, he said. Tell her Mark came by. Everything in me arranged itself into something that felt both soft and very sharp. What do you want with my daughter, Mark? She knows, he said, and his voice was careful, like he was repeating lines. She said, if I needed help to come here, and to use my real name when I did. He pulled up his sleeve like an oath and showed me a ring of bruises I had seen on other arms. He blinked like he hadn't slept. I don't want to run packages anymore, he said, and the last word cracked. I don't even know what's in them half the time. I want to finish school. I want to do that thing, she says, where you stop telling yourself you're a bad person because a bad person told you that long enough and loud enough that you forgot you weren't born that way. I thought of Lily telling a stranger to sit near the driver and to eat before sleeping. I thought of the tiny stars in the notebook. I stepped back and opened the door wider. She's in the kitchen, I said. We've got pancakes. Come in and tell the truth. He did. He stood on the mat like a person learning the word home for the first time. When he saw Lily, he took a breath like a diver hitting air. She looked at me over his shoulder, and something relieved and heavy passed between us. The world didn't become safe, but it became a place where we could see the danger and name it, and shape our steps around it. Days blurred with the practical work of building a life that could withstand pressure. We wrote lists. We made a plan for each possible knock at the door. Lily met Aaron at the library and came home smelling like dust and hope. At a woman at the community center who said she mentored kids with a smile that carried too many stories to tell in a season. She didn't ask for names, and that felt like the kindest thing. She told me about small grants and safe houses and a church that opened the basement at midnight and shut it at dawn. Meanwhile, the man from the storage units disappeared more quietly than I expected. You imagine fireworks when the monster leaves town. You get dust and the rumor of a truck sold for parts. Someone said he'd burned his eyes in a kitchen accident. Someone said he had moved operations to the county line, where the cameras are fewer and the police are literal cousins. One account said he was never real at all, just a shape that slips into the outline of the next man in line. I learned not to wait for proof when people were already back breathing. Suitcase stayed, though. I kept expecting it to vanish the way the man had, to dissolve into a moral we could write on a chalkboard. Instead, it became something like a relic, a reminder of how quickly someone can grow a second life in the dark, and how quickly light makes that life bloom or burn. We added a new layer to it: library cards, a disposable camera with pictures labeled on the back in pen, 2 train tickets to nowhere and everywhere. We tucked a folded paper map on top with circles in pencil around the places we'd never driven at night. The last star Lily drew in the notebook happened not on a dramatic night with sirens, but on a slow Tuesday afternoon when the sky hung low and the grocery store rotisserie chickens made the whole block smell like a holiday. Aaron sent a photo: a front porch with peeling paint, a kid's bike on its side, a dog that looked like he'd lived 3 lives already sleeping with his chin on the step. The caption read, "Home." Lily starred the line and closed the cover and put the notebook in the highest shelf where the dust can't reach, and I understood what the word finished looks like when you respect how messy it is. We are not saints. We are not crime fighters. We are 2 people, and sometimes 3 or 4, depending on who's hungry, trying to make a small dent in a big system that prefers its dents loud and theatrical so it can point and punish. Our dents are quiet. They look like school supplies in the fall and rides to job interviews that don't require you to be someone else to get hired. They look like the doorbell ringing at awkward hours and me saying, "Sit down. Tell me what you need in the next hour, not the next year." Because I've learned the next hour is where you find the future hiding. Sometimes at night I open the closet and look at the suitcase. I touch the handle and feel the fray against my thumb and remember the first time I saw it, and everything that tried to break between that morning and now. The house hums the way it did before I knew. The carpet presses back at my knees. I put my ear to the suitcase like it might be a seashell and whisper, "It's over," even though part of me knows over is a wish that changes shape each time you say it. On the worst days when my brain chases the storage unit shadows again, I tell myself the truth, the way Lily taught Erin to tell herself. Fact first, fear second. Lily is here. She is honest now, which means I get to be brave in new ways too. Erin sends pictures of a sky that looks like ours. Mark brings his homework and does it at our table like the table belongs to him, because for an hour it does. The man who wanted to own the roots does not own us, and that is the precise size of our victory. On the best days, we forget to look over our shoulders. We drive with the windows down. I say, "Text me when you get there." And Lily says, "I will." And then she actually does, a heart and a photo of a sunset that looks like it knows its job. We make pancakes for dinner. The house smells like sugar. The dog from 2 doors down sneaks over and gets a bite, because I will always be the kind of person who thinks dogs deserve a second breakfast. When people ask me later to explain what happened, I say we opened a suitcase full of lies and found a blueprint for telling the truth. We built the new shape slowly, out of ordinary materials: eggshell mornings, strong coffee, bus schedules, safe numbers on torn paper. We reinforced it with apologies where they were needed, and the kind of forgiveness that doesn't pretend it wasn't hard. And in the center of it, we put a girl who knew the difference between breaking rules and breaking people, and chose the scarier path even when the grown-ups around her were asleep. I still check the closet sometimes. I still reach for the suitcase handle like a ritual. I hold the weight of it in my hands, and then I put it back, lighter each time, and walk out into a day that no longer has a hole in the middle. Another true-life twist. Watch the next story.